Calling to order parking, traffic, and safety. Jackson, take attendance, please.
Mary Lou McKelvey,
Here.
Jane Mitchell-Pate,
Here.
Mark Siracusa, Erica Wygonick,
Here.
Deputy Police Chief Mike Maloney,
Here.
Fire Chief Bill McQuillan,
Here.
Public Works Director Peter Rice,
Here.
Stephanie Casella, Planning Department,
Here.
Barbara Sadik,
Here.
and Committee Chair Annie Hopkins.
Here.
All right, thank you.
All right, moving on. Financial report.
Move to accept the report as presented.
Second.
Any discussion or comment? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving on to public comment. For those who just stepped in, we have a little piece of paper there if you want to write down your name and contact email so that we can follow up with you if you have, questions or want follow-up. So, all right, we have 15 minutes for public comment. Brevity is your friend. Welcome to the table. Yep, just pop on up. You guys.
Oh, you can go ahead.
Okay, I'll try to be really quick.
So you just want to state your name and address and
Sure.
Have a seat,
Carolyn Berenson, General Manager at the Getty Bagel. I underestimated the size of this committee, so I have some printouts for visual aids, but I am requesting a proposal to remove a parking sign at the corner of Islington and Cabot. It currently says no parking from here to corner. The placement of that sign is creating a bit of a bottleneck in terms of traffic, especially during the summer with increasing traffic from our driveway of cars entering and exiting. It basically removes the full passing lane at that corner and forces people to work with one lane with 2 lanes of traffic. So it's just a portion. I think it removes 1, maybe 2 parking spots in total at that street. And if we just push the sign back to the private driveway, it would just kind of make the flow of traffic a little bit more efficient.
Great.
Is that it?
Yep, that's
Okay,
it.
great.
You get to comment to us and then we just listen. There's no back and forth with public comment. Thank you though. Yeah.
Sorry. I'll stand on this.
Sure. You guys gotta work it out.
I brought handouts too.
Okay.
So good morning, Tyler Garzo, 62 McKinley. This is regarding Van Buren. Of course, the DPW will present a cosmetic redesign of the original proposal that was discussed in length last month. Basically, they added lines. I have revised the slide that's going to be presented for clarity, and that's what I have passed around. The 24-foot compromise solution has also had lines added into it in the handout. The 24-foot solution is a lot like Aldrich or Coolidge in the neighborhood. And internal correspondence confirms both DPW and engineering contractor staff were receptive to reduced street width. It just hasn't been said publicly. The 2017 Complete Streets Guide says that Van Buren should be 20 feet wide. I appreciate very much last month that Erica pointed out that the Complete Streets Guide was made with intention and purpose. Parking can be easily maintained. If there are neighborhood objections, simple bulb out parking or treating parking as a chicane is totally appropriate. So the sample motion I would suggest to the committee is to move to institute a 24-foot maximum pavement width redesign restriction in Elwyn Park. Thank you.
Thanks, Tyler.
We're here because I was told by Benjamin Fletcher there would be an agenda item for a letter I submitted, Joy Kurth, but if it's not, but we don't see it on the agenda, so is this the right time?
It'll be taken up in miscellaneous.
Okay.
It was brought to us back in February. As you know, it for whatever reason, we did not get to it. It got buried somehow. We apologize for that. And we said we would pull it up as a miscellaneous item.
Okay.
So that'll be towards the end of the presentation.
Okay,
This is your chance to talk.
it is our chance to speak
Yeah.
to it. Okay, so there's 3 of us here. There's two things in that letter.
I'm sorry, state your name
Yeah,
and
you all state your names.
Sure.
My name is Sophie G. I'm with Jane G. Enforcement.
So I'm Joy Kurth. I own Society Tea and Apothecary Shop down on Sear Street, and I live upstairs from it.
And I'm Lauren Wolf, owner of Portsmouth Soap Company.
But we're actually
say that again?
Portsmouth Soap Company, Lauren Wolf.
Yep.
on Market Street. So we're actually part of the committee of the local love. Sophie came up with this. So it's the initiative on Thursday nights, once a month, the third Thursday. Started about a year and a half ago now.
You said local love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's an initiative where the business owners have come together to collaborate. Well, I'll let you speak to the mission and I'll speak to the rest.
The goal is to get locals back downtown. A lot of stores close early, so we wanted to kind of break down the barrier. We stay open late now until 7 p.m. on that night. There's about 30 stores that are participating. And our goal is, again, just to break the barrier down of a lot of these concerns we've had from customers. Parking's expensive, hard to find, stores close early, and there's no deals or perks for locals. So we're staying open late, which is great. We're all offering different promotions, deals, whatnot. But parking has still been a really big headache for our customers. So we wanted to ask to see if there would be an opportunity to offer that one Thursday a month, for the 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., some kind of parking initiative for our local customers.
Right, and I've spoken to a couple city councilors, and one of them suggested that maybe a 3-hour pass from Hanover, understanding that the actual parking on the street is hard to reprogram. So I think that would be a huge initiative because I've owned my business for 8 years. And I know Foundry has been, a great addition to the town, but I consistently hear regularly that people don't come to shop in Portsmouth because of the parking. You may or may not have heard that before, but that is something I still hear on a regular basis. So this is us trying to, bring that,
Stay viable.
yeah, and help the businesses stay.
Once a month.
Yeah.
3 hours.
And then the second piece of that is specifically also related to business owners and small businesses in particular. I understand this might not apply, or there might be a different scenario for like a bank, which I used to work at Bank Prov in town when it was Bank Prov. And I knew we had many parking passes and things, but for us, getting a commercial loading zone pass is an expense for a small business, and what has driven me to write the letter is I had typically have one of those. I have a small 2-seater car. I actually own a second SUV, but it was in the shop. So on Christmas Eve this year, I had to, and if you know Sear Street with the tugboats, it's a highly conflict street with parking and driving and all of that. And it was snowing, so I needed to borrow my mother's truck to load up my truck at 4 p.m. So I took my parking pass and I put it in that truck so I could load in there's one commercial loading zone in front of what's that? Sears Street Gallery. So I parked there and I got a ticket. So the alternative to doing that was to just park on the street and unload in a snowstorm in a truck because I could not drive my car on Christmas Eve. So my request, and all of us have scenarios like that, where as a small business owner, you might just need to use another car for loading. We have one car, but to allow our commercial loading zone to be per business, not specifically tied to a car, because we need to have that flexibility for scenarios like this. So it's either that, or I'll be forced to just park in the middle of the street on Sears Street and cause a conflict in a snowstorm and whatever else is happening. So those are our 2 requests.
Great.
Do you want to say anything else? Okay.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you for consideration.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah. Can I stay until the end since I'm actually on the agenda?
If you would like to, it would
I
just,
would make the motion that we bring this
Oh.
item forward once public speaking is done, and we'll have a second. I'll
second.
So we don't have to wait till the very end of the
So they don't have
Yeah.
to wait till the end.
Thank you.
All in favor of suspending the rules to bring this forward?
Sure. Yep. Okay, thank you.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Great. Okay.
Thank you, Lovely.
Continuing with public comment.
You can use my app.
Oh yeah, anyone on Zoom? No more public comment?
Madam Chair, if I could have Director Fletcher come up and speak to this topic.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to chat with you about this. If you'll bear with me, I have just kind of overview a little bit about how enforcement is done throughout the entire program. Excuse me.
Will you let everyone know who you are?
Yes, I'm Director Ben Fletcher.
Parking Director Ben Fletcher. Did you say that and I zoned out?
Pardon?
You say that and I zoned out.
No, I just heard Peter say it. So I thought maybe I was zoning out.
Back to my coffee.
So if you'll bear with me, I'll explain a little bit about enforcement and how different programs are enforced. So you all may remember the original neighborhood parking program. The primary issue we had with that was the guest passes because there was no way to enforce whether it belonged to a specific house. We would actually see people and I'm not suggesting anybody's doing anything wrong in these two scenarios at all, but it's to speak to enforcement generally speaking. We saw people move the pass from vehicle to vehicle, that kind of nonsense. So to prevent that going forward, if the RAP program is approved, we'll be going fully digital with that. And so you all may recall as well, about 6 or 7 years ago, we used to have what's called pay and display for regular parking, where you would print a ticket from the machine and you would put it on your dashboard. And we also ran into issues with that program because people would be sharing passes and things like that. So like most of the country, we've gone digital, and the plate owns the parking session for each vehicle. The original loading zone program, similarly, was dash passes and hang tags, and I think it was a $25 a year program, and there were an awful lot of businesses that were taking advantage of that. But we would see the same kinds of issues. There was no way to enforce which vehicle the pass belonged to, and we would see sharing amongst vehicles. Again, I want to be clear, I'm not suggesting anybody's doing any of these three ladies or anybody else is doing any of these things. Speaking generally to the enforcement process. So we decided to go fully digital, just like parking and just like RAP, pay-by-plate with this situation too. So getting back to regular parking, if your spouse decides to visit or meet you downtown in a different vehicle, everybody knows that both vehicles have to have an active session to be parked, say, side by side in the bridge lot. And that's easily enforced because they're active, live, real-time sessions that we can query the plate and see the device will tell us and the system will tell us if there's an active session. With the loading zone program, essentially you're buying a year's worth of 30-minute load and unload, active load and unload in a loading zone. And so if we have multiple vehicles, there's no way to understand which vehicle is in town. There's no way to understand if there are more than one vehicle in town. Again, I'm not suggesting anybody's doing anything wrong or would do anything wrong. The fact is it would be impossible to enforce. So much like having a second paid parking session if your spouse visits you downtown, the solution we can offer is if a business wants to add a vehicle would be to purchase a second pass so that at any given time either vehicle would be eligible and we could look up the plate and it would be in the system. So are there questions related to that answer before I move on to the $3 park?
Is there any technical solution that potentially could address multiple cars for assigning for the commercial loading zone to the store or the shop? Could you create like a mini whitelist for that? Where you have a certain number of vehicles assigned to that, and obviously if there's multiple vehicles in that space, you know that it's not being followed properly. Is there that? Could that subtlety be created? Do you think?
There are already 3 whitelists in the Park Mobile system. I would have to check and see what their capacity is. To be honest, I don't know the answer to that. My concern would be if somebody has different locations or if they're doing different things throughout town or maybe running errands, that one vehicle might be in the front of their store, actively loading and unloading, and another vehicle might be somewhere else doing other things simultaneously.
So if I could, Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
So in theory, what I was thinking was that you assign a zone to the store. So it's a separate Park Mobile zone for that specific location, and therefore it would not be transferable to other places in the city. It would be just that zone in front of, for that parking zone. So, and if you can't answer that right now, I understand, and we may need to do some research and report back
Yeah, I'm not sure that is something they can do.
Yeah, so I mean, and we know they're constantly innovating and they're doing different things, so we can explore that. But suffice it to say, you know, what you're saying right now is the technological solution is not there to provide this, and given the past history, that makes it difficult to manage. This is the current solution that's most equitable and fair at the moment.
Yeah, correct. It's just impossible to enforce properly. And if you can't enforce properly, then you do end up with issues. Again, I want to be clear, I'm not suggesting anybody here behind me has done anything wrong at all.
Yeah.
Just these are the concerns.
Yeah.
Any other questions before I move on to the $3?
I'm wondering too if as you investigate this, I mean, could it be something like whenever we look at, I just was talking about childcare, which is the other thing I talk about, parking and childcare. But it was talking about how the easiest route for someone who wants to open an in-home daycare is to raise their hand and say, I want to do this, and then the city sends out a pre-inspection person to look at their specific scenario. Would some model like that, like coming to look at someone's specific scenario where there is a crunch, where there is a pinch, and I understand that equity needs to be, considered there too, but would that be something like if someone raised their hand and said, hey, I want help with this is an issue for my business, could someone come and do like a site review or something like that as we start to gather information so that we could even go to Park Mobile and ask for whatever they want to innovate next? Would that be a possibility?
So I'd be happy to look at anything individually. I think Director Rice would speak to fair use.
Yeah.
And we might run into issues with state RSA and federal RSA on fair use.
Okay.
Which also applies to the next discussion.
Yeah.
Sir?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Could the committee ask that you report back next month with your findings so that we can somehow address this for the businesses that are affected here?
I'll see
And
if Park
even-
Mobile has a permit program specific to this kind of thing, and if they do, we'll see if it applies and can be applied with New Hampshire law and or city ordinance.
Yeah, sure. And Madam Chair, I would, reiterate what the chief just requested and say that we'll explore, other solutions as well to see if there's something viable that would work.
Yeah, and again, we're talking about making sure that we can be confident in the enforcement process.
Sounds good. Okay.
So as to the $3 Thursday request, as you know, we do a $3 free in the garages for the holiday season. And that runs about $7,000 per day when you do that. Now, this is not a monetary discussion, but what it is everybody coming downtown, regardless of whether they're shopping or dining at any particular place or restaurant, it's kind of a blanket thing. We don't really know what they're here for. It's just everybody's getting the first 3 hours free. So part of the problem with targeted $3 is because you have a fair use issue. And another problem we have is, say at Foundry Garage, the way it's bonded, we're not permitted to offer a discount to a certain group over another. So there's 2 reasons we can't do that, at least at that location, but everywhere else, state RSA prevents and federal RSA prevents the fair use situation. So what we do in solution to that right now, and a lot of the hotels take advantage of this, if they have a wedding party coming in, what they'll do is they'll come to us and say, hey, at Foundry or at Hanover, whichever one is closest for their guests, they will come and buy market value, because everybody has to be treated the same, market value passes for however many hours they feel their guests are going to need to stay. And so if it's a wedding event and it's 4 hours, they'll come and buy 4-hour passes, as many as they need. And when the person comes through, there's a sticker that goes over their ticket they pulled when they came in, and it reduces the value by the 4 hours that were prepaid. And it works very, very well, and it's very popular. So that's the solution that's in place right now.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to suggest that the hotels have the money to do that, or whoever has the event. We're talking small businesses.
Okay.
Trying to accommodate. My other concern, we jump to the first Friday of the month, that's Art Around Town, and I'm sure there will be other businesses saying, can we reduce the fee? What can we do for Art Around Town? So I think it's a bigger picture for the small businesses downtown that are trying to survive. And so I think there's opportunity for more discussion on this.
So speaking to that, and also to the discussion when it was brought up that residents need, the discussion went straight to residents. There is a steep discount for resident parking downtown already. So that exists for the purpose of doing exactly what the group behind me is interested in, and that's attracting residents downtown. Yes, it's scarce. We all know that parking is scarce, and so what was the second half of your?
Well, I was just talking about another event
Small business.
evening.
All right, so the small business situation, the hotels, yes, they have money, they can do a large party, but any small business can decide to pre-purchase however many they want, and then if somebody comes into their store and makes a qualified purchase, whatever they decide a qualified purchase is, they can decide to whether or not to offer that parking to that person. So they have full control over how much they buy and over how often it's used. I would just recommend they keep them under lock and key.
I have two questions. I guess one, can you tell us a little bit more about how I guess I'm a little confused about the application of fair use because we do provide the discount to residents, so how would this be different?
Director, can you help me with that?
I'd have to talk to Jane Beagle I'm not exactly sure when he's using that description,
Yeah.
how it's applied. So, why don't we report back in a more comprehensive manner?
This is my interpretation coming from legal, so
No, I'm just, because we do have a system where we provide residents with a discount, so
Again,
I'm just not sure.
it's a legal interpretation. and
I don't, I
I'm
just
not
wanna
gonna-
understand
I'm
for
not gonna
myself.
opine
We'll
on it.
include that in the report back.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
And I do, yeah, I mean, I think it would be good for us to understand what our options are for both of these situations, because they are both, I think, meaningful concerns for our small businesses, and without small businesses, we don't have a vibrant city, right? Like, we need economic vitality to have a city where we have a parking program and a parking problem. So I think trying to be creative about, could we assign multiple plates to a single pass? Maybe there's a cap in the size of the business that it applies to. I don't know what we would want to look into from a policy perspective, but I think I guess I'm a little concerned hearing businesses come to us and say they're having a problem, and our reaction to them is, well, pay more money to solve the problem. Maybe that's the right thing to do, maybe that's fair, maybe some sort of, you're basically talking about a validation program, and, that's, maybe that's reasonable. But I hope we can think more broadly and just see if there's other options than that. It feels, I don't know, someone's asking for help, and to say the best way to get that help is for you to pay money might be the only option, but I'd like to know if there's other options.
So, and Erica, that is exactly what we were proposing to do.
Yeah.
So explore those options. Remember, there's a value to parking.
Yeah.
It's important. It's managing the utilization of parking. That's what's so important.
Yeah.
And it's, everybody has a reason why they feel they should have additional free parking. So we need to be consistent on how that's applied.
Totally.
So, and to be aware that the parking program is a larger entity, that you pull one string and it has impacts elsewhere. So, we're not trying to create a situation that becomes more complicated to be consistently enforced and regulated and managed. So we'll come back next month with a number of approaches on how we can
What the
potentially
options
solve
are.
this. Or if we may decide, we may say that we don't recommend doing anything. But at the end of the day, we will evaluate this.
Yeah, obviously, we take everybody's concern seriously. We just want to, as the director said, the system needs to be looked at holistically. We have demand and supply issues, and there are laws. There are supply and demand laws in place that will encourage one behavior versus another if you apply one thing or one policy versus another. So all that has to be looked at as to what will be the equal and opposite reaction when we take an action.
I guess related, and maybe this is pointing to the fact that maybe there isn't as much of a concern as has been brought up, but it seems like if we look back at the financials, that we're actually pretty far behind on parking for the year. And so I wonder if, I don't know, I mean, maybe you wanna comment on that?
So the budget is designed to cover expenses, right? So we're about 8% down on transactions this year. It was an aggressive revenue budget based on last year's numbers, making the assumption that we would have the same numbers. The spending is what's important here. As long as we don't overspend the revenue we bring in, we don't have an issue. So the revenue is tracking fairly even with last year because we have a slight uptick in average ticket price, even as we've lost overall transactions. The good news is May is about 5% above May last year so far, which is nice. The first month we've had over last year since probably September or October. So it's ticking back up, and I don't see any issues with meeting the 12.5 that we put in there, as long as the expenses are, less than what we're taking in and can be.
That's not at all I'm not asking about the revenue neutrality of the parking program. I'm asking about, it appears based on the fiscal report that parking demand is down. And that's my question, because I think that's a more holistic question for the city. If parking demand is down, that's something we should be aware of, because that's kind of like a canary in the coal mine for.
This is true, but we still see peak occupancies of 130 to 140% on the year, when the industry target is 85.
So it's daytime activity that's down then?
It's overall. I would have to look deeper into the data to tell you exactly when people are showing up and when they're not. The overall data is -8.
So you need to look at the parking utilization and activity in the context of weather, context of the economy, in the context of the tariff challenges that the Canadians have been encouraged not to come down because of cost and because of whatever types of activities. So there's been an impact, a reaction to all those different things. And as Ben said, we're seeing an uptick in utilization. Again, we're 5% over last year for the May period. So you can't look at a couple of months and say, this is where we're at. There's a number of things. It was a more a typical winter than we expect. And on top of that, the budget as it was put together knew that we were being aggressive in our revenue projections, and we have a fund balance to cover the deficit if it occurs. So it's it's something that Ben and I talk about on a regular basis. We are aware of the challenges associated with that, but the utilization overall is still very high. But it's off of it's not as high as it's been before.
Yeah.
So, and to elaborate on what Director said, we lost 7 days of snow this year. And typical day in the wintertime, that's about $17,000. Multiplied times 7, so it's not the end of the world, but it's significant when you consider February being heavily snowfall. So other economic factors include the dollar being stronger and the exchange rate for Canadians. We're hearing from our Canadian friends that they're not coming as often because they don't have as much purchase power right now. So there are just an enormous number of factors at play.
Yeah, I mean, some of those factors we have control over, some of them we don't.
Correct.
Mostly it's just an indicator, right? Like it's a measure of activity, and if it's down, it's down. It's just, I think, good to be aware of it.
I'm confident that May and June will be strong.
Oh, yeah.
It's in my ear.
Somebody at the door?
Yeah.
I didn't even.
Avon calling.
I'm surprised there's not a dog barking.
I've had friends run to the door. Hey, get that. Oh, you go get it.
They're going for a beer.
Sorry.
Calling, friends are calling them.
It's 9 in the morning.
Anything else for your,
It depends on you guys. Anything else?
any other questions for Ben on this item that we pulled forward from miscellaneous? Unfortunately, that's not the format. I'm sorry.
Opportunity today to speak.
No, I believe no. There's not a chance for a back and forth.
I would make the motion to allow for additional comment on this topic
I just have one question.
Since she's here.
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we're suspending the rules, come on up and ask your question.
It's just one question, because I'm confused about the commercial loading zone, because we have to have it.
You have to come to the table
Yeah,
or the
sorry.
microphone doesn't hear you.
Sure. It's just a question, because I'm confused about your assessment about the commercial loading zone, because we have to have a placard in the car. So unless you're photocopying it.
Actually, you don't. It's done by plate. We can enforce, we still issue the placard simply because it's easier for enforcement to see.
Okay, is that the same for handicap?
No, ADA is done yeah, well, ADA has a placard, yes.
Okay,
It has
because
to-
that same vehicle also has an ADA placard, because my stepfather's
88
handicapped, and we keep getting tickets, so I'm confused, that's why I'm confused. By if it's by
ADA
license
gets 3 hours,
Yeah, I understand that, and
Right.
we've gotten tickets with the placard in the car, so
so.
that's why I'm confused by what you're saying, that
So
it's not by
if I
placard.
may,
Yeah, yeah.
this would best be taken offline because this is
Well, I
more
guess I was just saying as
operational discussion.
Yeah, I was confused because this placard has to be in the car, so unless we're photocopying it,
So,
misusing it, you know.
So we'll look into that and,
yeah, we can have a discussion.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine, that's all, all right, thank you.
no problem.
I just need one more like a log thing.
Sure.
Come on up.
Just while you're looking at options, I know the term residents was brought up a lot. When we say locals, it's more than just Portsmouth. Like our goal is to bring locals, so Kittery, Rye, Newcastle, Dover, Dartmouth, like everyone in to support our small businesses because it's been very tough, and so we need that support. So when residents, I know you use the example of the rate, which is great, but it's kind of outside of just residents and it's locals in general. So thank you.
Thank you for letting us make those comments.
No problem. Yeah, thank you for coming and bringing it up, and
Thank you for
the,
considering.
sometimes the format can be restrictive, so thank you for your patience with that. Yeah.
Understand.
All right. And presentations. We have Fleet Street, recommended traffic flow and parking configuration between Congress and Hanover Street by the Department of Public Works. Welcome.
Thank you. Dave DeFosis, for anybody that doesn't know me, Dave DeFosis, I do a lot of the construction in the city of Portsmouth. I've been really blessed to be working for the department for quite a quarter century now, so I know the streets very well. So we're here today, we're in the midst of Congress Street, where utility work is nearly complete, thankfully. It's been a very long winter out there. But to finish the utility work in the next couple of weeks, we need some answers. So we have a brief kind of slideshow that we'd like to go through with you, and then just reading off the slide, we just want to kind of recap where we were 4 or 5 years ago when we did public comment and we started the project. I know these projects take a long time in human scale, but there's so many checks and balances in the system that it takes a while to actually get a project like this going. So we want to go through all the information that we previously acquired, review the original concepts that we used for the web survey, so that we kind of have a basis of what the premise of the survey was. Present the original results, determine a final recommendation for section 1. So we're breaking Fleet Street into 2 jobs, basically, is what happened. And that was largely utility driven, based on what we found underground. And then provide updated recommendations for section 2, which we don't necessarily need an answer on today. We need an answer on section 1. But section 2 is kind of like, we need to talk about it, and if we can make a recommendation for section 2, then that would be great. But that's a lot to put on your plate in one day, so we're not gonna necessarily go there all the way. So this slide shows you Fleet Street, which the Fleet Street project has less to do about Fleet Street than it does about this entire section of downtown. So this started as a stormwater project. So when it rains, all the roof drains, all the streets are all draining into the sewer, sanitary sewer, not the storm drain system. So that has been largely remedied with all the work that we've done this winter. In most of the green area that's to the left, I'll go left of the red line, which is Fleet Street. We are now at the point, now that we've fixed the stuff on the left, now we're starting to focus on the red line, Fleet Street proper. So, back in 2021, Zach Cronin and I put together a web survey with Stephanie, and we had QR codes. We had posters downtown where you could snap a photo with your phone, get a poll, and ask people what their opinion is. What do you think we should do? Because this downtown is all of our downtown, right? We all kind of live in the downtown. It's really one of the most important areas of the city central. So we brought those to you guys in January 2023, so a little over 3 years ago. We went through the survey. We recommended sections of Fleet Street, what we should do, but we didn't actually act. Sounds right. So we're here to act today. So the next slide is the 2 Fleet Streets. So as I've alluded to, we've broken Fleet Street down, and operationally, not only utility-wise, but operationally, Fleet Street really is 2 different streets. I think of it as when you're going down Congress Street and you get to Fleet Street. If you go left, it kind of feels different than if you go right and you go toward the parking garage and you go toward Gillies. That section of Fleet Street is a little smaller and a little tighter. So, and for reasons I already alluded to, utility-wise, it's totally a different street. So, bottom line, the ADA rules require us to have certain width sidewalks, certain grade sidewalks, and it is impossible to maintain a 2-way road that has parking on it and still have the sidewalk widths that we need. So something has to give, bottom line, and we're asking that it gives today. So the bottom slide is just the narrow width of that sidewalk. That sidewalk's about 4 feet wide. It's really kind of impossible to plow. Because of the lack of sunlight down there in the wintertime, it ices up pretty heavily down there, and we can't really get the sidewalk tractors on the sidewalks. So we have an operational issue that we also have to deal with. So the next slide is what we are calling Concept B back in 22. And option B was one-way traffic from Court Street to Hanover Street with parking. That was the original plan, was to treat the street as one corridor and kind of not break it up into 2 thoughts, but to treat it as one entity. And the reason why the one-way from Court Street to Hanover was chosen was because of the fire department response. So obviously the Central Fire Department is right at the end of Fleet Street, right on Court. And that way the fire department has an available way of getting pretty much everywhere in the immediate downtown via Fleet Street. So at the time there was a lot of discussion about if it's gonna go one way, that's the way it should go. So that kind of led the decision-making process. At the time, the options that we gave people on the survey was, do you want a 2-way street or a 1-way street? And if we have a 1-way street, do you want parking or do you want no parking? And we have different reasons for that. Can you get the next slide, please? Oh, this, by the way, is what we're recommending. We'll get to that at the end of when we talk here, but this is layout B, which actually shows the one-way retaining some of the parking. So we'll get to that, back to that. But concept B was the one-way. with parking, and then concept C was a one-way with no parking. So, kind of working our way through this, we've been boots on the ground now for about a year down there, and I think we have some thoughts that because of the nature, spending a winter on Fleet Street is not a good time. I would tell you I'm usually in my nice, warm, cozy office in January drinking hot cocoa, and we were out there in the cold all winter. Fleet Street is a very cold place. And it kind of lends itself that the original thought when we did this web survey was, hey, we're not really thinking about it. Do you want one-way with parking or one-way no parking? And everybody saw that big wide sidewalk and said, oh, that'd be great. It would be awesome to have a wide sidewalk on Fleet Street so we can do outdoor dining all the way down the street. And, and we were kind of like, a lot of this was driven by the utility infrastructure that we had to put in the ground. One of the main things we're doing with the Fleet Street project is we're burying the wires on Fleet Street. So we were looking at places where we could put transformers and even maybe underground transformers, which didn't pan out. But we were looking at all those things, and we were working with Eversource, and if we put the transformers underground, we absolutely cannot have cars driving over them. Yada yada yada. So we kind of pushed this big wide sidewalk thing. Since that slide came up, the Mark McNabb Newbury Court thing has come to light. Mark is recommending that we actually put some transformers behind Gillies, so that kind of solves that problem for us. So we're working, I wouldn't say we're working with them, but we're working kind of like in the same moment in time where we know that things are happening that weren't happening when we were doing that. When we were doing that, Gillies was independently owned. There's a reasons why we kind of went through that. But if you look at what the survey said, keeping the two-way street with no parking got 5 votes. So not very popular. Getting the one-way street with parking actually got 35. That's the bottom left slide. And then more popular was the big wide sidewalk for reasons I think I already alluded to. I think, that's subjective, but that's my feeling. And then we got the naysayers that said there was 6 people who also voted, don't change my Fleet Street, we love it the way it is, right? So that was kind of what we went through, and catch up. And then section 2, just to talk about it a little bit, from Court Street to Congress Street, there was 11% said keep it a two-way street, but take the parking away. 14% said don't touch my Fleet Street, and then pretty much split between wide sidewalk and parking evenly, which is great when there's a perfect split because you don't know what to do because nobody has an opinion that you can actually just say, let's do that. So let's go to the current recommendation slide, if you would. So, as I said, we really need an option. We really need an answer on section 1, which is between Congress Street and Hanover Street. As a department, I think we're pushing that we go with the one-way recommendation that we made last time, that the public seems to support, and that is consistent with the fire department access route. Because of the darkness and the fact that we don't think that if we build a wide sidewalk all the way down Fleet Street that it's going to get used as a big wide patio, that it makes sense to keep some of the parking there for the short-term uses that are on that street. Interestingly, if we keep the parking, the drainage structures don't need to move, so we can always go back and put in the big wide sidewalk after. It doesn't matter. So that's good, it gives us options, right? So our current plan, if you approve it, is to change the street to one-way. Have parking from like down by Gillies to Hanover Street. Widen the two sidewalks that we have now, so they're both ADA compliant. That would give us about a 19-foot wide street everywhere and wider where there's parking, but if there's parking, obviously we get a 19-foot street. And then the street gets narrow only next to the Franklin block where you can't really park there now anyway. That gives you a shorter pedestrian crossing across Fleet Street along Congress Street, which is where everybody crosses, right? I mean, everybody crosses there. That's a very, very popular crosswalk. So that narrows that crosswalk right down. And so we think this is probably the way that we would recommend that you vote. But it's not our job to vote on it. Second option would be more or less the same layout, but we remove those 7 parking spaces shown in the orange here, and we make the big wide patio now. And that is the wrap up for section 1. I just wanted to give you a schedule update. Eric asked me to kind of give you a where are we in the project thing. So Grenice has made stellar project. They're really kind of ahead of schedule, which is good. It's given us the opportunity to maybe get a little bit more done than we thought we were going to get done this spring. We thought we'd be starting water main right about now. We're almost done water main. The sewer is done. The storm drains, we have 2 catch basins left to put in, and that'll be the end of the underground stuff that has to happen. In the next couple of weeks, we are going to install the mast arm foundation. So the Fleet Street signals are going to get rebuilt. They're going to look like the Cabot Street and Miller Ave signals that we put in, where we have one big mast arm that then cuts across the intersection at 45 degrees. And that one main mast arm has all the traffic signal, most of the traffic signal heads on it. That eliminates the need to have big mast arms on all corners, which gives us more room for pedestrians. So the other 3 corners, of course, still have pedestrian accommodations. They have pedestrian push buttons, they have the pedestrian heads, but that stuff takes up less room. So the corner that the big arm is going to go on is in front of the Franklin block, right by where the main pedestrian crossing is. So that mast arm will go where there's a light pole there now, luminaire. So that will take the place of that luminaire. As part of the new signal equipment, we're putting in overhead lighting to reinforce the lighting in that pedestrian crossing. We're also adding a light down across the street from the arch at the end of the Vaughn Mall. So between the arch and that new light, that pedestrian crossing from the Vaughn Mall to Chestnut Street will be better lit. And then the regular street light poles that we have will stay in their locations everywhere else. So we are planning to get the traffic signal base placed, conduit placed, and we need to put in conduit for the street lighting, for the traffic signals, and for the underground power and telephone so that we can drop the poles on Fleet Street. So all those things are gonna happen in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And after that, we're gonna wrap up. We're gonna put first layer of pavement down on Congress Street. The sidewalks will be temporary asphalt for the summer. But the road will be completely rebuilt. In the fall, after Labor Day, we will come back and we will build all the sidewalks permanent with brick and all that stuff. All that will happen after Labor Day. But getting the road binder done 100% complete gives us the opportunity, hey, when we come back in the fall, now we're working on the edges of the road. We're not digging up the middle of the road. because fall is a lot busier downtown than spring is. So we're trying to get everything that we can get done before the kids get out of school, before Market Square Day, when downtown traffic really explodes. So we're trying to get everything done that we can get done before Market Square Day. It's more or less the same date the kids get out of school. So that's kind of our target. After that, we're out of here. We open up, we get rid of all the orange things, and we put up whatever signs we need to, and we have temporary sidewalks for the summer. Questions? Too much information?
It's good information.
Congress will remain 3 lanes
Through this summer.
through the summer.
This fall is when it goes to 2 lanes. That's when the sidewalk will get widened. So we'll pave the full width for the summer, and then we will take some of that road away when we'll do a road diet in the fall.
Quick question, are the sidewalks going to be all brick or are they going to be like
They're going to be brick. It's downtown, brick is our standard.
all
But we're using the new bricks, which are
new bricks so
not.
it won't go?
So,
Okay.
right, the
That's
brick
what-
sidewalks are gonna be ADA compliant, so
Yeah.
there'll be, when you come out of the storefronts, there'll be a large section, in some places, the entire sidewalk, in some places, maybe 5 or 6 feet will be that ADA compliant cross width. And then the road is coming up in places, the road's going down in places, so that we have, so all that's been already thought out, so when I pave the road in a couple of weeks, the road that you see will be the new road, and that will be designed so that when we build the sidewalks, everything downtown is ADA compliant.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I had 2 concerns. If Fleet Street is one way going west, and you can't turn into it if you're coming on Hanover, what happens to the intersection at Hanover and Market Street, which is a very crazy intersection?
So you can't go that way.
You have to go down, you can't turn right onto Fleet, so you have to go straight towards Market Street.
I
And
don't know
that-
the answer to your question, but I know we did turning movements when we went through all this stuff, and I'm not sure you're prepared to answer the
That
question
is
today.
such a dangerous intersection.
But
This is just gonna
there
compound it.
really isn't a lot of traffic that goes that way. There really isn't. There's some, for sure, but most of the traffic takes a right on Congress Street and goes that way. And I'm not sure what the split is, but
So-
that's just,
We did model this, but we were proposing this, looking at the alternatives for one way, and the modeling showed that it would work.
I'm concerned about that
The
intersection.
po-
It's a
positive-
pedestrian nightmare.
If I may, the positive thing about that intersection is that it'd be a right-hand turn for the people, so it's not a conflicting turn. So it from traffic movement, it's not as bad as if you were, putting a bunch of people that are gonna go both directions. If they're going right onto Fleet Street, they're gonna go right onto Market Street. So
Right.
it's an easier movement, is what I'm
Well,
saying.
yes, except I just think that whole intersection needs to be looked at very carefully. Pedestrians, traffic is coming up from Bow Street, they're turning, pedestrians are walking, they're not walking on the crosswalk. I'm just concerned that it's gonna compound it. The second comment is coordinating with Mark McNabb's major work that's being done around Gillies. So I'm sure I don't need to ask you that question actually, but I'm sure it's all coordinated so that you're not tearing up.
being coordinated.
Yeah.
As you probably know, I also sit on the TAC board. I've reviewed the plans. I kind of know what they're doing and how they're plumbing their site, for lack of a better word, whether that's electrical plumbing or water plumbing. So I'm coordinating all that stuff.
Yeah, because we'll see a lot of truck
Internally.
traffic on Fleet,
For sure.
construction.
Yep.
Truck traffic.
Yes.
I think that's all I had.
I have a question about bicycle flow. If it's one way, is there any room for a contra bike lane, again, for people that are accessing? Because personally, if I were coming downtown, I'd come in through Market Street, I would much rather bike down Hanover than Congress, because all of the back out parking and stuff like that. So, but that would prevent me if I wanted to go to the music hall or whatever, coming
We
down
only
Fleet.
need 12 feet for a traffic light. We're gonna have 19.
Okay,
So if we, as a community, decide to do that.
Yeah.
There would be available room if we wanna go through that. We have to look at it.
Yeah.
We have to make sure that if we're gonna do something like that, it's not gonna confuse people so that they think it's okay to take a left out of the parking garage and go that way because they see a signal head up at the mast arm, right? So we need to just think about that
Yeah.
and study it. So we're not ruling it out. We just haven't thought about it because it wasn't part of this, and it's not part of what we're doing.
Right.
But it's not ruled out.
Okay, so we could look at,
You can still look at it,
Bicycle.
it's not gonna change anything
one.
that we're recommending.
okay, cause this wouldn't, bike lane, bike though, that could come later.
Sure.
It doesn't need to hold up your market day deadlines, because there's gonna be revisions and
All it
there's
is,
gonna be.
according to, Eric and I had a discussion yesterday, I am not well versed on this, but
Okay.
it's a bike signal that goes up on the mast arm.
Okay.
Which is in the air and easily done in the air. So
Okay.
it doesn't require ground modifications. It's striping on the ground.
Striping and signing on the street, and then when you get to the Congress Street intersection, you would have to have a bicycle signal head for the bicycles. And that, with the new signals equipment that's going in, there'll be video camera up there, and that'll be able to detect the bicycle in the bicycle lane
Okay,
to turn the green and turn green for them at
great,
the appropriate time.
great, so it's.
It can be done.
It's in, okay, it's just not.
It's possible.
It's possible,
It's an option.
great, love to hear it. Erica?
I think the idea of a contraflow lane for bikes is really worth thinking about. I think it might be a little tricky just because of the direction of the one-way and the on-street parking. I like the idea of a contraflow lane or something because I think 19 feet of pavement is very close to a 2-lane cross-section. And I think that's an area that we have a lot of visitors and guests and tourists using. And so I think 19 unstriped feet of pavement is going to lure people to go the wrong way.
Oh, for sure. We're gonna
So I
have to,
think
we're
we're
gonna,
gonna
no
need
matter what
a lot of-
happens, we need to look at the striping to make sure that it's crystal clear what
Yeah.
we expect people to do.
Striping and signage for sure.
We need to absolutely look at that. And we will think that out, whether we do the contract or not. We need to think about that, just to make sure that we're covered. Because people are coming out of the garage in the middle of the night and,
Yeah.
right, we just need to make sure, right?
Can you explain why we're not doing all of Fleet Street as one way from Court all the way up? Because very few
Might.
cars.
We might be.
Might be.
So,
It just seems to make
again,
sense.
when we talked to the public, we treated Fleet Street
Sections.
holistically.
Yeah.
In my mind, in my planning mind, I would like to see how the signal at Congress and Maplewood operates before we decide as a community that we're gonna not be able to take a left on Fleet Street off of Congress. In case, right, because when we talked about Fleet Street holistically as being a one-way,
Yeah.
the 2-lane thing on Congress Street was not talked about. It wasn't thought of.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like, it's two different ideas that kind of happen separately. I think that because we're not building Fleet Street left yet, gives us an opportunity to build Congress Street, see how it works,
Good.
and then make a good decision after that. That's the way I'm thinking about it.
That's why I asked. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions, comments?
Eric just asked me to talk about a couple of things that are happening.
Richie, do you wanna?
Yep, if I could make a
Or move
motion
on.
to suspend the rules and move up item 8B under miscellaneous so that we can take advantage of having Mr. Bosis here to talk about these matters.
Second?
All in favor? Nope, go ahead.
That's you.
Construction.
Construction.
That's me?
Construction.
Okay, that's you.
Thank you.
I didn't get an agenda. So,
What's HP?
we have two, we're working on handicap ramps downtown. I think you've seen that. So that is one project we have in the immediate downtown that's kind of good. We're trying to get that and trying to get all the ramps that are in that contract rebuilt before mid-June. Also, We have two major paving projects happening this summer that are gonna influence us, right? Now that Islington Street's done,
Congratulations.
Looks great.
we're gonna start paving State Street in 2 weeks. So part of that is rebuilding whatever handicap ramps were not getting rebuilt under the handicap ramp thing is getting rebuilt largely because of the State Street repaving. So largely every handicap ramp on State Street will be replaced. I think there's one or two that stay. So those will get done soon. I don't have a schedule yet, but I suspect that work's gonna start within a week and a half on handicap ramps. We need manhole covers and they're on order. So I can't start paving yet. But paving on State Street should start. We're gonna mill off the top layer of pavement and replace it. That's what it is. We're not grinding the road back to dirt. We're taking off 1.5 inches and putting 1.5 inches on. We'll fix all the manhole covers and all the handicap ramps and restripe it the way it is. I saw there's a couple little ideas that are floating around. So I'll work with Eric and make sure that we restripe it the way that we want it. So that's happening between now and mid-June. And
The
then
section between Middle and the bridge.
that is from Middle Street all the way to the Memorial Bridge. It includes going down the little ramp toward Prescott Park. It includes going around the semi-roundabout at the entrance of the bridge. It includes the first couple 100 feet of Daniel Street that are in bad shape. The tie into Bow, the tie into the parking lot, and the little ramp coming up from Harbor Place. So all that stuff is in that particular job. And I'm hoping to have all that done before mid-June. After that, yes?
So as you may know, I just stood up the bike and pedestrian committee. So I have a question. How is the striping gonna look for bikes?
Sharrows.
Sharrows? Okay.
Sharrows.
As
Yep,
is.
that's what's in the contract.
Thank you.
And I'll get some direction from Eric about how often we need them. I was assuming that we need a set of Sharrows after every block. But, we'll talk about that. After that, Middle Street's getting paved too. So Middle Street's getting paved from Porter. Last year when we did Islington Street, we paved the first 1,000 feet of Middle Street up to Porter. We're gonna start at Porter and we're paving almost to Greenleaf. Right in the middle of the ABC buildings is where we're stopping. So that itself will have handicap ramp work. That'll happen over the course of the summer. So again, trying to get out of downtown before that, and then we'll be on Middle Street doing that. As part of that Middle Street work, we're adjusting curb here, there, and everywhere to make the pedestrian experience a little bit better. Specifically, the one that calls to mind immediately is the corner of Richards and Middle Street.
Oh, yeah.
Where the pedestrian signal keeps getting hit and we keep driving into buildings. So we're gonna try to, we're gonna widen the sidewalk out there, so that the pedestrian crossing the, RRFB, is a little safer for the sidewalk tractors, and the pedestrian crossing is a little smaller there for the kids coming out of the school. There's a couple other spots that we're gonna look at. Mainly is a paving project. Mainly the striping is going back the way that it is with the adjustments that we've made currently. So the street should look more or less the way it does today, except it'll be new pavement and new markers. And then we have another project. We have a project ongoing right now on Elwyn Road. I'm sure everybody's seen that. That project stops at Taft. And then from Taft to the Rye Town line, the paving project is gonna rebuild Elwyn Road the rest of the way. So by the end of the summer, from the Rye Town line all the way to Lafayette Road proper will be new pavement on Elwyn Road. So we're working on that. And then we're working on a couple of streets at Pease that probably don't affect this group in general.
Busy.
Yep. Questions?
I just want to make a quick comment that I recall maybe 10 or 12 years ago, that the Fleet Street issue was brought up, and your prior representative on this committee said, pay attention to the emergency vehicles. We have to get out of the station. So here we are, talking about it in 2026. That's all.
So I would like you guys to act at some point, in this meeting, is what I meant. Just to give us some direction. We, as a DPW and construction company, we need to know where the drainage structures need to go in the next 2 weeks. So we just need you to act on that.
It is the first item on the agenda that you don't have.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Hope you all have a nice day.
You too,
Thanks,
thank
David.
you so much.
You go.
We're about to vote.
Cynthia.
All right, new business, Fleet Street.
I move to recommend that traffic flow on Fleet Street be changed to one-way flow with on-street parking from Congress to Hanover Street.
Any discussion? Jane?
I have a potential amendment,
Please.
just to include the bike lane.
I love that.
To be considered?
Sure. Into the design, like into the plan.
Consider potential for a contraflow bike lane? Does that work as a?
Just like naming the call out for the bike lane, I think, in the recommendation.
If that is already seconded, I'd like to speak to that. There's a new bike ped committee that's been standing up. I would give them the opportunity to speak to that. I think our vote at this point is necessary in order to enable that.
Okay.
Because the space is gonna be there for it. So whatever, if you vote for this option, it doesn't preclude that, and it would give the opportunity for the new committee to discuss it. I'm not seeing any impediment to moving forward with that. So, but I think it's a good opportunity for the new committee to be able to speak to that item and explore more what it means and how it goes together. It's a good opportunity for discussion and education.
Sorry, that works for me.
Okay, great. So we'll go back to the original motion.
Yeah.
Unamended, but thank you for thinking of the bikes.
Just one question.
Yes.
On the parking at Hanover Garage, people will not be able to use the Fleet Street entrance, so the signage will be really important to that as they're coming up.
Correct.
That's all.
I know I had the same thought, because that's how I sneak into Hanover.
Yeah.
We'll still be able to use it, it just won't be a right in,
It's
right
an
out.
Yeah,
exit
well, I
only.
mean, they will be able to come in from Hanover.
Any other discussion around Fleet Street? All right, so all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, moving on. Gate Street requiring parking restriction opposite 84 Gate Street by resident.
Whoa.
Oh, hello.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to allow
Second.
speak.
So in the formality of these groups, you speak at public comment. This is just items where we vote, but we're gonna make a motion to suspend the rules so that you guys can have your time to speak. It's just a formality. The folks from the businesses were kind of caught by it too. It's
Oh, okay.
it's the structure of these committees,
Oh,
but
sounds good.
it's so, you know, it doesn't always feel the most intuitive. But Director Rice has made the motion, it's been seconded, so I'm assuming you're the residents of,
Yes.
great, okay.
Yeah, hopefully this is a quick one, but we just moved to 74 Gate Street. We have a 2-car brick driveway there, and as you know, Gate Street has public parking on it, which is great. The issue is when someone parks directly in front of our driveway, we can't get out of our driveway. It's physically impossible, and it just obstructs, our ability to use our driveway. So I would propose that, maybe someone would come out for like a field site visit to see if we could put a sign up or maybe paint the curbing that's there across the street from us. But that's really the summary. It's just, it's preventing us from being able to fully use our driveway.
It's only from like the telephone pole back, so when a big truck parks past it, like
like I've scraped my car on our neighbor's fence because I can't make that turn with a larger car. We can't park both of our cars there. If it's just one car, which we've been doing, we can is tight. But if it's like a big construction or like service vehicle, it does make it challenging even with one car. But it's just from the telephone pole back if people are parked in that little section that's like highlighted between the driveway and that telephone pole you can see in the photo there. That little portion makes it hard to like turn back out of it.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I think we were requesting like a sign that says like maybe no parking beyond telephone pole or something. Because if it's in front, it's no problem.
Yes, discussion.
So I just want to clarify, because I don't think I understood this. It's literally like a 5-foot section?
Yes,
Very arrows is
Do we have a way of doing that?
It could be stripe or a sign or.
But how? Because usually we do like to the corner or something. Yeah.
Whoever, Mary Lou, Barbara.
Mary Lou, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, we did something similar on Austin Street. Right?
No.
We didn't.
No, we didn't.
Well, the issue came up.
Yeah.
So what was the solution on that?
He's backing in.
Google, Street View.
What?
I'm
Google
just
Street
asking,
View.
Google Street View, so we
We're
can see a
gonna put it
different
in our-
perspective.
Yes, Mark.
In Austin Street, the residents backing in instead of.
Yeah, so we made a change, we
Yeah.
suggested a change
And they-
without changing
They did that.
parking,
So
correct?
they back in, so when they
Yeah.
leave,
Yeah.
it's a lot,
So
it's a
I
lot
was just
easier.
wondering what we did, because it was an issue that came up a couple of times to the committee.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sorry,
Yeah,
Barbara.
I just had a question about
Yes.
enforcement of this. What would be expected in terms of enforcement were we to put in a sign? That was a question. I'm not suggesting
Yeah, I mean,
something.
it would be.
Right.
I mean, we're talking
That is not
about-
part of our regular enforcement route.
No.
So that would be, it would be somebody who'd have to call and then, it would be send somebody out.
Would that assist in perhaps the residents say, like I'm going to tow your car because you're parking in this spot? I mean, would that, because it sounds like if you're getting blocked in, what is your recourse been to get out of your driveway, scraping your car?
Yeah.
Have you ever like called to have someone towed, or would something like that give a little bit more?
This is Madam Chair, if I may.
Please.
This is a much larger issue than your access to your driveway. This street has had restricted parking, tight parking for, as long as I can remember. Before any changes got made, I would recommend a conversation with your neighbors and make sure there's some consensus about how you deal with this. Because I don't feel comfortable making restrictions for one property owner when there are many folks on that street that have difficulty finding parking to begin with. So, I'm sympathetic to the challenges of getting your vehicles in and out. But it's, for us to make a decision based on one property owner, when there are many property owners along that section of roadway that are, challenged relative to being able to park, becomes a much bigger issue. So,
So what would the next steps be to go through that avenue for them? Like what would it?
I would recommend that
Get a
you,
petition
petition or get a caucus of your neighbors, how do you go about doing it? At this point, I would not be supportive of any action at this point. So we originally were gonna say table this for now, and give you the opportunity to speak to your neighbors and come up with a solution that's acceptable to everybody.
Sure, okay, that's fair.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
So
think
you have
that's fair.
you have clear next steps for, it's just this isn't quite the way because of what Director Rice was saying.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's a good idea.
Everyone has feelings about parking, so gather your neighbors and discuss your
Yeah,
feelings.
for sure.
And please come back, or please reach out if you have any questions as to what that process would entail. But I think we need a bigger consensus, like Director Rice is saying, before we would consider any changes.
Okay.
I believe, Ben, this section is part of the wrap?
It
Gate Street?
is, and
I
if
thought
so
so.
approved, it will be part of a regular rotation of enforcement?
So there's, a dynamic going on now, as you may be aware, that we're gonna be doing resident parking in that area, and other folks are gonna be charged to park in that area, so that may be incentive to not block up the area as much. So it'd be a good opportunity to kind of revisit the whole dynamic of that street.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it forward. Yes.
I'll move then that we place the item on file.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Moving on, Cabot Street. Request for parking restriction between Islington Street and the Getty Bagel driveway by business owner. And we have her here, Carolyn. She spoke at public comments.
Move to schedule field site visit for committee members and make recommendation at next meeting.
Any discussion?
I think we also maybe should encourage them to work with their neighbors to develop some consensus around this. I recognize it might be causing tight access, but it's kind of the same sort of thing where that's an area that I think has a lot of parking demand, and the loss of a couple parking spaces might be pretty impactful. I feel like we just lost a couple of spaces over there recently because of a driveway change, so I guess I think a site visit is a good idea, notifying the neighbors and just reaching out to the neighbors to make sure that.
May I make a suggestion that we do not schedule a site visit on either Monday or Tuesday? Because that's when Getty Bagel is closed and we don't have this issue. Speaking as a resident over there, it is really scary sometimes to be coming up Cabot Street, which is our normal way to get out from where we live. And Monday and Tuesday are fine.
If I may. One of the challenges is the stop bar is so far back because of the visibility on the overhead traffic signal. So, one of the things I mentioned to Eric was like, is there a possibility of getting an additional signal lower so you can push that stop bar further up, and maybe that would help? But you're looking, you're saying no.
No, I looked into that after we talked about it.
Yeah.
And you can certainly add a supplemental signal head there, but you cannot move the stop bar up.
Okay.
If that was considered a primary head, you'd actually have to move the stop bar back even further.
Okay, never mind.
You have to have 40 feet from the stop bar to the signal head.
Fair enough.
Okay. Discussion. I saw your hand and we've suspended the rules so many times.
Sure, we'll just suspend the rules.
I'm sorry. That's okay.
To your point, I would just recommend coming like on a Sunday, maybe. If you can just imagine the line of cars leaving the parking lot.
Our committee is city staff, so I don't think we would wanna ask them to have to come in on a Sunday for that. Is there a
that's
different
totally
day
fair.
that would?
Maybe like a Friday.
Friday
but
morning
I'm
will
also
get
more
ya.
than happy to take a video and submit it on a Sunday, because that is probably the biggest issue we're seeing is on the weekends. Nobody can get out. It's just a one-way lane at that point when there's two cars there. It just becomes a total bottleneck, and I would speak for the neighbors as well that they can't exit the street either.
That's a
So,
good idea.
Actually, we have a traffic camera we can
Yeah.
put up and get some data, so get a good visual.
In lieu of a site visit.
No,
Or
I-
in addition to
in
the
addition,
site
in addition to the site
If
visit.
we have video from the signal as well, we can call that up for any periods of
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, appreciate
the time.
Mark, did you have?
No, I was
Okay, any
I
other?
thought it was in lieu of, it's not.
So we can amend, or will we just loop the traffic camera into the site visit?
But that'll just be part of our.
Part of the meeting.
Sounds good. Okay, any more discussion on Cabot Street? All in favor to schedule site visit with traffic camera, and we'll make recommendations at the next meeting? All in favor? Or-
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Oh, did you have a
Is
question?
there an influx during the week of your business? Is there an influx during the week?
She said Friday morning would
Friday
always-
mornings.
Friday mornings is your,
Well, Saturday and Sunday for sure is like
okay,
the
yeah,
absolute
during the week, so it's Friday
mayhem
mornings.
of it, yeah.
Okay.
That's why
When's the
there's
so when's the busiest on Friday morning? 7 to 9?
between 7:30 and 9:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no, we'll have to go get bagels and just watch traffic.
Don't park anywhere near there.
Don't park, no. I'll ride my bike. Okay, moving on. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
D, State Street, request for recommendation in support of license agreement to parking space by residents.
Move to object to the request and recommend the city council not approve.
Have you heard?
Today is the day.
I did not.
Move to waive,
Thank you, Peter.
I mean, we need to have a motion.
I haven't heard a second, so. We didn't hear a second for the,
5 minutes.
I motioned and he just seconded.
Okay,
okay, so
That's for the
The-
motion, so we can talk about it.
correct.
Now does someone?
I move to allow comment.
That's what I second.
Oh, that's what you
I'll
seconded.
second yours.
Okay.
Are all the,
I would like to comment on our move to allow comment that I think maybe next meeting we need to be more clear during public comment that people, this is literally their only time to talk.
Yeah.
This meeting has gone quite long.
Yeah.
And feels like
Agreed.
it's been appropriate to let these people talk. I don't want them not to, but.
Is that a motion?
No, that was a comment to the motion.
agreed. Please.
Thank you. Tim Phoenix from Hopeful Phoenix, Gormley and Roberts, on behalf of Michelle Grennan. Steph's got the images up here. I will be very quick. Michelle Grennan lives at 10 State Street, and her garage and entry to her home is right off of that little spur at the end of State Street as you go around to go under the bridge. And there it is, and there's her car and her garage. You can see the no parking sign either side on the telephone pole there. And what's happened is that from time to time people park illegally, and she gets blocked in. From time to time she has guests. From time to time there's snow issues because the first thing the plows do is plow the main areas, and it gets pushed into hers until they come back later. So she originally requested through my office a license to use that entire area for her parking. That was not favorably responded to by the fire department, and understandably after I understood it. In that image on the lower left of the building, there's a standpipe and some kind of other connection there that the fire department needs. There it is. So obviously, fire and other public safety needs to be able to get into that space. So we've amended the request to allow our license to park on the far side as you're facing it, on the right side of that image. We felt it was fair to the city and fair to her to have that spot, and you can see it with where the hand is there on the image. I knew that the fire department objected to our asking for the whole area. I'm unaware of the reasoning, although I kind of expected the motion since it's recommended in the agenda. But I thought I would at least make the request because I can conceive of nothing that's unreasonable for the city. I've been involved over the years with issues where the city has granted licenses for people who have special conditions, and this is one we think, so I would ask for consideration of it. That's it.
Thank you.
So this is actually State Street, it's not part of the
Correct,
property.
correct, it's State Street.
I think it's technically State Street Extension, I think they identify it as, but
Well, I was just gonna suggest enforcement, that whoever, and the crew goes down to Prescott Park to enforce that parking, does the same for that area there, and that's the way I would leave it. Not giving that, not granting a parking space, because then that opens up a huge Pandora's box.
Any other discussion?
Also presumably site plan review would have looked at this.
I believe so.
Years ago.
I mean, obviously it was not
Yeah.
yesterday, but.
That was a while ago, and it was considered at the time, and
Yeah.
it was not granted at the time.
It doesn't feel like it's our job to.
Barbara?
To Mary Liz, is it not being enforced? Is there any reason not to enforce it? Is there any reason why we can't enforce that as a no parking area?
No, it can be enforced.
I want to be clear that I'm not saying it's never enforced, I'm just saying it's a problem when people illegally park from time to time that creates the problem.
All right, any other discussion from the committee? So we have a motion to object to the request and recommend that City Council not approve the license. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Well, thank you for letting me speak, and I echo, I didn't know that I was supposed to speak then, so if you make that announcement clear at the end, I would have done that then, so.
No problem. Thank you.
Recommendation, thank you.
All right, moving on. City ordinances, Chapter 7, Vehicles, Traffic, and Parking. Request to modify ordinance to allow parking within 10 feet of all intersections by Hampton Falls resident, referred to the committee by City Council.
Move to recommend no changes to parking restrictions near intersections in Chapter 7.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on, Hanover Street requests for renewal of valet license for the 100 Club by business owner.
Move to approve renewal of valet license for the 100 Club for 1 year.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Old business, Van Buren Avenue, report back on residents' request for narrower roadway and parking restrictions after upcoming reconstruction project. Motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to have, so move to follow with the recommendations currently designed by the city. And if I could have Eric speak to it.
And then, yes, discussion, Eric, please.
So, after our last meeting, we were directed to reach out to PTA and discuss it with them. They'll present our proposal. We did meet with the PTA group, interested members, before their last meeting. They were interested, they liked the city's proposal. They did not want to see the street narrowed up any further than we were proposing to narrow it. We stuck around for the full meeting. The rest of the PTA members were not interested in the project, so we left it that time.
Sorry.
Then we put together a flyer, and I handed that out to each of the abutters on Van Buren, explaining that what the city is proposing to do is to narrow the street with a sidewalk on one side and to keep parking on the other side in front of their houses, and that there was another recommendation to narrow the street further by removing parking on that side. And if they were in favor of that proposal, please reach out to me. I did not get any response from the Van Buren Ave residents, so assume that they wanted to keep it as the city is proposing it. And what we're proposing is the narrowing the street from the existing 33-foot pavement width down to 28 feet with the sidewalk on one side. Right now, these existing 5-foot shoulders with the striping are used as pedestrian walkways because there are no sidewalks out there. We did video weeks worth out on the street, watching how the street was used by pedestrians and vehicles during school pickup and drop-off times. And it turns out there is more than twice as many pedestrians walking on the school side of the street as they are on the other side of the street where the sidewalk is proposed. So as part of that, we feel it'd be best to keep that pedestrian walkway on that side, knowing that pedestrians often choose the shortest path to get to their destination. And that would allow them to still have that 5-foot paved walkway on that side of the street, in addition to the new sidewalk that will be built on the other side of the street. If we were to reduce it to the 24-foot width, then that eliminates that 5-foot shoulder, and pedestrians would be then mixing with traffic in the street. We don't feel that is a safe condition. We feel it is safer to keep the 28-foot as proposed, which is still a reduction from the existing 33 feet of pavement out there. In order to, clarify that this is still a pedestrian walkway, we would put the pedestrian striping back. It wasn't originally in the proposed plan, but we will add that striping, which narrows the roadway to a 22-foot travel way, less than the 24-foot width that is being suggested. We feel that this is the safest solution for pedestrians and vehicles because you're not mixing traffic and pedestrians. They all have their own space during those critical times of school pickup and drop-off. The rest of the day, it is very light traffic out there. You can walk down the middle of the street without any problems with traffic concerns. But during that school pickup and drop-off times, we feel it's very important to have a space for everybody out there. This is not your typical slow street in a neighborhood. It is primary access to the Dondero School, and that's why we feel strongly that the 28-foot proposed section is the safest option.
All right.
I got questions coming out of my ears.
let's
No, not really. I assume there's a good reason if most of the pedestrians are on the other side of the road that we can't move the sidewalk to that side of the road?
Yeah, the reason the sidewalk was chosen on the other side was because that's where the right-of-way is. The roadway today is not centered within the layout. So if we were to put the sidewalk on that other side, then we'd be taking easements and property from landowners and having to shift a lot of the road. It would be a much more complex and detailed project.
And then my other question was, in that week of observations, how many cars were parked?
None. There was a basketball hoop out there, and there was no cars parked.
It's more of a weekend.
When the school is closed.
When people have people.
Yeah, they were parked on a side street, as it
Right.
leads into the school, where people are coming in to use the field. But
Right.
they weren't parked out on.
I've never seen anyone.
No. Jane? I just want to confirm that the proposed design doesn't have any parking restrictions,
Correct, parking is still allowed as it is today.
even though I know nobody's parking, but
On
just
both sides
curious.
or just one side?
I think
It would still be allowed on both sides.
that's both. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I just think considering how much work has gone into this study and asking for PTA members, others within the community for feedback, I think that this is the proposal to go with.
Appreciate the outreach.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll second that. You did a really thorough
Doing
job.
something with barrels? I heard last meeting, we were talking about barrels during the construction part to simulate.
Oh, to try to simulate, I think that was a thought of, if we
That was
narrowed
just
it
a
down
thought.
further, we could simulate that with barrels. That's, I don't,
I'm just saying that if you look at the neighbors, they're kind of not very active with you when you reach out to them. But once they see it and they live with it, then that's just the only idea I have.
yeah, because, we're not proposing to take away their parking.
Right.
We're proposing to keep it as it is now with the 5-foot pedestrian shoulder. And traffic and.
Be recognized?
Is there a motion?
Someone would have to
We have a motion to vote on it.
make a motion.
I will make a motion to suspend the rules because everyone else got to have a motion.
I'll second that.
Yes, Tyler, come on up.
I appreciate that. The PTA presentation wasn't during the regular meeting time and was a surprise to many residents, including other advocates. The presentations to stakeholders have been very biased towards keeping the wide right-of-way as is, as opposed to making a narrow road geared towards children. Were any children asked what they think? No. The recommendation to just switch the sidewalk to the other side of the road is very reasonable, especially if that's where the demand is. And a little bit more effort, that's the same right-of-way that we're using, could be very viable. Basically discovered that's where it should be, not just more asphalt. It seems like the DPW has gone fishing for alternative opinions and justifications rather than listening to the February meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Any other discussion? Otherwise, we have a motion to recommend to proceed with the project as currently designed by the city. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Kate Street and Hogden Way, request for speed feedback sign, blind drive sign, speed enforcement by residents.
Move to refer to staff for implementation of items which are warranted.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on, Middle Street at Cass Street, request to reapprove temporary removal of parking space north of Cass Street, originally approved by Parking Traffic and Safety in October of 2024, implemented in spring 25, monitored in June of 25, but missed deadline for 2025 omnibus.
Move to reapprove removal of one parking space on Middle Street north of Cass Street.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes.
now that we know that there's a paving project and potential moving of curbs I wonder if this is a spot where it might make sense. I recognize moving curbs is not a cheap willy-nilly, let's just do it whenever it's fun. But this, and I also recognize technically, I think our approval makes it a 1-year temporary. Maybe city council would be willing to, maybe, I don't know, they have to read it 3 times though then, I don't know. But this seems like it's calling out to have the curb shifted to block that area, if that's possible. I just wanted to mention it.
We can look at
It's
that, no,
worth
that's,
looking
I
at.
think it's a reasonable thing to look at.
Like a bump out, you're saying, like
Yeah.
this area?
Folded into the middle street stuff that's going on anyway.
We'd have to see how it affects drainage.
Yeah, right, obviously it's not nothing to move a curb, I recognize that, so I'm not saying you have to, just single mentioning.
Okay, so we have a motion to reapprove removal of 1 parking space on Mill Street north of Cass Street. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? State Street at Chapel Street crosswalk, report back on the RRFB.
Move to install pedestrian warning sign. That's that yellow sign, right? But
Yeah.
not RFB.
Is that rapid, what's RFB? Rapid
Rectangular.
rectangular flashing beacon, flashing pedestrian sign.
What's that?
The RRFB is the flashy pedestrian sign.
So like
It says, but not RFB, yeah.
Right.
I just say RFB, it's just.
Any, second?
Second,
Any discussion?
did you have anything you
Yeah,
want?
I can certainly add some. So we put a camera out here for a week and we were watching, counting cars and pedestrians. There's certainly a lot of pedestrians crossing, but there was no issue with cars yielding to them on State Street. So based on the criteria for an RFB, it didn't meet the criteria, not enough vehicles, volume or speed, and it is a relatively short crossing distance. The other issue with an RFB, would it have to be for handicap accessibility, the push button would need to be on this side of this tree, and then the flashing lights would be hidden by the tree. With a regular warning sign for pedestrians, we could put that in front of it where this moped is parked. With a little bit of trimming of branches, we can get that sign in here to make it more visible. Likewise, we could put it here. So that sign is much more doable. The other issue we saw, I have a picture here during the video, is a lot of traffic coming out of Chapel Street. It's surprising how much is actually coming out of here. And they have a limited sight line. So you can see where this truck is, he's at the stop bar. But he can't see because of the building and the parked cars here. You have to pull out to this point here to be able to see traffic coming on State Street. And when they do that, they're blocking this crosswalk. These were pedestrians who were on the sidewalk and had to go behind the car to continue on. So this was actually a bigger concern at the intersection than the crossing of State Street. There was enough volume coming out of here and the sight lines are poor enough that this could be a location where if the committee wanted to consider an all-way stop, you could maybe think about that. But I'm not recommending it, but it's something.
That's been that way for a while.
Can you just hear the screeching, the trucks?
It is terrible.
You gotta creep out.
Yeah, it is. And it's a pedestrian, and sightline issue there, so. Which, if you had to stop traffic on State Street, that would address that issue. As far as the crossing of State Street, we'll be putting in the signs to address that.
I was just wondering, there isn't a history of like pedestrian involved crashes at that location that would merit doing something above and beyond.
Any other discussion on the motion to install pedestrian warning signs, but not an RFB? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Maplewood Avenue, request to review pedestrian signal operations by resident.
Move to place on.
Which pedestrian signal operation on Maplewood?
It's the leading pedestrian interval at the 3 signals,
Deer, Hanover, and Congress.
concurrent phasing.
Oh, okay.
Second. Discussion?
Yeah, I mean, we're monitoring these intersections all the time because they do have the video detection. And we can see the issues come up. And there is a new technological analysis you can do, which costs about $5,000, called near miss. And it will actually, you send them the video and they say, okay, you almost had a collision here. And they can tell you if there was lowness or highness, you know, or how severe these conflicts are. So you don't have to wait for someone to get hit to say, oh, ha, there is a problem. This will tell you, oh, you have a potential problem.
Yeah, okay.
But when we've been watching it, we've always seen vehicles going behind the pedestrian, not in front of them, so we're keeping an eye on it and making sure it's safe.
And no issues that you've seen in the police reports?
There was last year, if I recall, there was a juvenile struck on a scooter at the intersection of Hanover and Maplewood. I think we have video of that.
Yeah.
But we're also keenly aware of the 3 intersections as well, yeah.
Great. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Informational. Police monthly accident report.
Good morning and thank you. In March, we had 42 total crashes. 26 of those 42 were reportable. No instances of pedestrians or bicyclists being involved in crashes.
Great.
Can I just ask for a request for next month so that you can update us on the e-bikes and the scooters and everything that is going on within the department and the city?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, we got item B. Item C, discussion of committee purpose and mission. I would read a motion to table that. Yeah, let's do that. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? D.
If I may,
Yes.
I would encourage everybody to, prior to the next meeting, to read the enabling authorization and to have ideas kind of outlined so that in advance, you know, so that it's just not a general spitball session. I think there's an opportunity to kind of revisit the focus of the committee. I think it's appropriate and it's timely. But I want it to be a coherent process if I
That's a great point.
could.
Could you, Jefferson, could you send those out to us so we're not?
They're in the packet today.
Can I just ask a question on that? Who devised this?
The ordinance?
Yeah, the ordinance.
City council.
City council did it, so,
Some years ago.
Any changes would have to go to city council.
okay.
Okay. So we have homework and we'll talk about that next month. Informational D, 150 Portsmouth Boulevard neighborhood traffic concerns. Oh.
So this came to us, I don't have any slides on it, but this is the new apartment complex that's going in on Portsmouth Boulevard. It's before the, I can bring it up on Google. I can't really see where we are.
Visual person.
Yeah.
Is this time critical?
Yeah. Is it time critical? Or can we push it to next week?
It's before the planning board, so it's just informational because this committee doesn't have jurisdiction over this issue. It's an apartment building going in at this corner of Portsmouth Boulevard. And as part of that development, they would be removing the existing barricades on the end of Dunlin Way, so allowing through traffic to come through Dunlin Way to Osprey Drive. There was a traffic study done for the project. It showed that most traffic will come in and out of the site by using Portsmouth Boulevard, so the signal here, because this is the only way in and out of the neighborhood unless you take Commerce Way. If you come through the neighborhood, the neighbors are concerned that the traffic will be cutting through their neighborhood to get out. But if you cut through the neighborhood, you're still coming back to Portsmouth Boulevard. It's still the only way out of the neighborhood. The traffic study was done. I reviewed the traffic study. It looked fine to me. We had a third-party independent review of the traffic study. They had no issues with it. But still, the residents are upset that the traffic study did not show traffic coming through their neighborhood. And it's before the planning board right now.
All right. Any discussion? And outdoor dining update.
Yes, the first barricades went in this week, Monday morning. So Thirsty Moose is set up and the Daniel Street Tavern is set up. And I think, I don't know if there's any other stuff that have been approved since then.
I'd have to double check.
As far as in the street goes, yep. So 2 that are in place right now. Moxie will be going in next. That's on Penn Hollow Street. Applications are still coming in.
Miscellaneous, anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Great.
Thank you all.